Welcome to the FDOT Automated Quantities Training for MicroStation Select Series 4, Module 4. This video will cover Chapter 5 from the Automated Quantities Training Guide and will discuss Quantity Manager. Quantity Manager is a GeoPack tool that we use to store and organize the project quantities that we export from the Design and Computation Manager. Quantity data can also be edited and added manually in the Quantity Manager interface. The Quantity Manager application has a lot more functionality than we'll cover in this training, so for advanced operation, you'll need to refer to the Bentley help files for more information. There are several different ways to launch the Quantity Manager application. From the MicroStation toolbar, you can select GeoPack, Road, then Quantity Manager. From the Road toolbar, under the DNC Manager pull-down, there's an option for Quantity Manager. From the FDOT Plans Development Quantities taskbar, there's a Quantity Manager icon. And depending on what file type you have open, you may find a context menu option. If you right-click and hold in your drawing, the context menu will display. Then, if it's available, you can select the Quantity Manager option. When Quantity Manager opens, the screen looks pretty bare. The first thing we need to do is open or create a project. When you click the Open Project button or select Project, Open, the Connect to Database dialog appears. You'll either need to enter the file path or click the magnifying glass button to browse to your Project Discipline folder to find your MDB. Once you have the path defined, you can click the Connect button to open the database. If you haven't yet exported any quantity data, you can select Project New or click the New Project icon to launch the Create Database dialog. In this case, you'd need to browse to your Project Discipline folder and create a new MDB with your project number as the file name. If you create a new database in this fashion, it would allow you to import your project properties before adding any quantities. You just need to be sure when you start to export your quantities from DNC Manager to set your export format to append, then add them to this database. When you start working in a new database in Quantity Manager, you need to set your project properties. You can either enter the data manually or download the data from Designer Interface. At a very minimum, you should fill in the General Information section, Project Financial ID Number, the project description, the unit system, English or metric, and the specification year. The location information section is not required to be able to enter the database information into project pre-construction. Note that the spec year has to match the project pre-construction project header AEC XML file exactly. Ideally, if the project is already set up in Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction and you have the login credentials for Designer Interface, you can export the header information from there. Then, in the Project Properties dialog, you can import that file to fill in the property data. This will ensure that your project properties match Project Pre-Construction. We'll go over that process next. First, to get to the WebGate website, you can find the link in a couple of places. From the FDOT Plans Development, Quantities taskbar, click on the Open WebGate icon. Or from the FDOT bar menu, select Actions, Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction, then click on the WebGate website link. Since not everyone working in the quantities process will have the Designer Interface login, none of the exercises in this training guide are done in WebGate. I'd like to demonstrate the process, though, so that those that will need to be doing it can see how it's done. Let's click on the WebGate icon on the Quantities taskbar. This opens the WebGate page. We'll click on the Designer Interface link, and it will take us to the login page. This is where you'll need to use a user ID and password. Just a note for those that have the login credentials, the password has to be reset every 65 days, so make sure you log in at least every couple of months to change your password so you don't get locked out. If you get the pop-up to save your password, make sure to click Not for this site. Password security is important. For our training, we use a generic project set up in Designer Interface for CAD office testing. The project dataset was an actual project that has already been constructed and it's no longer accessible in the designer interface, and we wouldn't want to modify it anyway. When you're doing this on a live project, you'll need to navigate to the entry with your project number and everything should match. To set up our project properties, we need to click on the Export Header link. In Internet Explorer, you'll see the Save bar pop up at the bottom of the screen. You'll want to click the arrow beside Save to get the option to save as and navigate to your project location. Notice that the file is automatically named with the project number shown in Designer Interface. If you're not using Internet Explorer, other browsers like Edge may automatically save the file to the Downloads folder. If that's the case, you can just open your Downloads folder and move or copy the file to the Project Discipline folder. We'll navigate to our roadway folder, and you'll see here that there's already a file with that name in the folder. I already included this file in the training dataset so everyone can use it even if they don't have login credentials to download it. Once you have the header file downloaded to your Project Discipline folder, you can import it in your Quantity Manager Project Properties. In the Project Properties dialog, you can select Project on the menu, then click on the Import AEC XML Infrastructure v33 project. Navigate to your Discipline folder and select the file you downloaded from the Designer interface and open it. Then a Transport Groupings tab will appear with all of the groupings that have been loaded into Project Preconstruction. You can use the checkboxes to mark which groupings you want to import into your database. You can leave them all checked or only select the ones that you'll be working with. Click Import and all the header information will be saved to the database. Once you have the project header information imported, you'll notice that the Transport Groupings pull-down in Quantity Manager now has all the groupings that you had checked in the Import screen on the Project Properties. Another thing that you'll see when you go back to DNC Manager and calculate and export quantities to this database, the groupings pull-down from the Computation Results window will also have the groupings listed that are now saved in the Quantity Manager database. Another thing you'll need to set in your database is your project preferences. Click on Project, Preferences, and the dialog will open. You'll need to download the pay item list to your project, then save it in the Project SYMB folder. To download the list, on the FDOT bar menu, under Actions, Ashtaware Project Preconstruction, click on the link for AEC Item XML Download, and it will open the website. I'll demonstrate this process in just a moment. Once it's downloaded though, click on the Browse button at the end of the pay item line and navigate to the saved XML file in the SYMB folder. You can leave the Enable Ad Hoc Attribute Editing unchecked. Checking this would allow you to edit ad hocs in Quantity Manager. Since LDM works with the DNC Manager database and its ad hoc settings, I recommend that if ad hocs need to be changed, to do it in the design file and re-export those quantities, so you won't run the risk of LDM missing quantities because the ad hocs don't match. Leave the payer blank empty and the display accuracy is fine as shown. Click OK and the project preferences are saved. Let's run through the process of downloading the pay item list. On the FDOT toolbar, select Actions, then Ashtaware Project Preconstruction and AEC Item XML Download. This opens the web browser login page. Following the directions on the page, enter Guest and no password. Then click Sign In. You'll see the AEC Item XML file. Notice the last modified time. This file gets updated daily, so you can and should download this file regularly and keep it updated in your project folder. Go to the end of that line, click the arrow to expand the selection. Click Download, and on the Save dialog, click the arrow and select Save As. Navigate to the project SYMB directory and save the file. Go ahead and overwrite the file, and don't forget to update it regularly. Now let's take a quick look at the Quantity Manager interface. When you open Quantity Manager, the default layout is as you see here. On the left is the Pay Item pane. By default, the Pay Item tree is active. It is laid out in a folder tree format similar to the D&C Manager listing. On the top right is the Quantity pane. When a pay item is selected in the Pay Item pane, this window shows each individual element within that pay item. Those elements can be shapes for area quantities, or lines or curves for linear quantities, or even cells for per each quantities. Any element that has a quantity for that pay item you'll see here. You can turn on or off any of the column headings in this window to adjust the view to whatever you need to see. On the bottom is the Element pane. When an element is selected in the Quantity pane, this window displays all the attributes that are assigned to that element. There are several tabs available in this window, but during the Design Quantities process, we only need to worry about the Element and Ad hoc Attributes tabs. If you click on the Pay Item Table tab in the Pay Item pane, the pay items will appear in a table format with adjustable columns similar to the Quantity pane. Right-click menus are available in the Pay Item pane and the Quantity pane that show actions available based on the entry selected. Right-clicking on a category in the Pay Item pane shows options for inserting categories or subcategories, pay items, or deleting or renaming the category. Right-clicking on a pay item in the Pay Item pane shows options for inserting pay items or quantities or editing the pay item. Right-clicking on an element in the Element pane shows options for inserting, editing, or deleting entries. Pay items and elements also have an option to customize the view, which can also be achieved by right-clicking on the column headers. Now let's talk about how to add information to the database directly in Quantity Manager. You can use the menu options or right-click in the Pay Item pane to add categories, pay items, and quantities. As we saw before, the right-click menus vary depending on what level you select. You can insert a category above or below the selected item or create a subcategory. Simply enter the new category or subcategory name and click OK. You can insert a new pay item above or below a selected pay item, or if a category is highlighted, inserting a pay item adds it to that category. You'll either need to complete the fields in the dialog, or you can use the Browse button to choose a pay item from the AEC item XML list. Then click OK to add the pay item. To add a quantity to a pay item, you'll need to highlight the pay item you want to add to, then fill in all the data in the new Quantity Properties dialog. You might want to add a quantity manually when there is something that is not calculated by D&C Manager but still needs to be included in the project, or when a contingent quantity must be added after the project quantities have been calculated. The new Quantity Properties dialog has 3 tabs, and all 3 need to be reviewed and completed as necessary. On the General tab, make sure to set the measurement basis and value to the correct units and number for the quantity you're adding, then fill in any other information that's applicable. On the Location tab, you need to select a chain and set the station values. This data is critical to the quantities process, as the location data is required on the Summary of Quantities tables and LDM requires it for automated quantities. This information must be included. When manually entering quantity data, you need to include any ad hocs on the Ad hoc Attributes tab. If the pay item is defined in D&C Manager, then the ad hocs added here must match the names and types of the ad hocs in D&C exactly, or LDM will not recognize the quantity to include during automation. The Add and Delete row buttons are in the upper right of the window. Once all the tabs are completely filled in, click the Create button and the quantity will be added to the database. Exercise 5.1. Navigating Quantity Manager. In this exercise, we'll explore the Quantity Manager database that was delivered with the training dataset. We'll look at the tools available and ways to adjust the views to review the data. Let's take a look at Quantity Manager. It doesn't matter which CAD file you've got open. I'm still in the shapefile from the last module. On the Quantities taskbar, select the Quantity Manager icon. When that opens, we'll be in the blank Quantity Manager screen. We'll need to connect to a database, so let's click Open Project. Then we'll see the Connect to Database dialog. We'll need to browse to our project. Remember that our database is stored in the Discipline folder, so we'll look in the Roadway folder, and the training guide wants us to open the 220 project number with AQT file. There's no username or password, so click Connect. If you look at the top of the window, you can see the project path and the AQT file name, so you know we're in the right file. Let's take a quick look through the menu options. Under Project, you can see New, Open, Close. You could edit the transport groupings, import and export database information, set properties and preferences. Let's look at the project properties. You can see they're already set in this file. The information and chains are already loaded. If you needed to import this information, you'd select Project, then click on the Import link. It's already set, so we can close this window. Let's double-check the preferences. The pay item path isn't set, so let's navigate to the project and attach the path. Keep in mind that the pay item list is updated on the website daily, so you'll need to make sure to update it in your project regularly. Don't forget this file is in the SYMB folder, so select the file and click Open. The payer and display accuracy is good, so click OK. Back in the project menu, you can see the last opened file and the exit option. Next is the Edit menu. You can select or unselect all items, delete or rename items, edit the transport groupings, or edit funding information. We don't worry about funding in the design quantities process, so we won't be using this. Then there's the View menu, where you can refresh the view. This is handy if you keep Quantity Manager open while you're still working in MicroStation and exporting quantities. If you make changes and go back to the Quantity Manager window, you just need to click Refresh for those changes to appear. You can adjust the display of the columns in the pay item, quantity, or element tables. You can expand and collapse the views, and you can change the way the windows are displayed. The Insert menu has options to insert categories, pay items, or quantities. The Tools menu has the Reports tools, which we'll cover more later in this module. These are very important for some of our quantity tables that aren't automated. And the Help menu, which is a good resource if you have questions about Quantity Manager that aren't covered in this training. Now let's take a quick look through the button options. New and Open, and there's a button for Refresh. You can adjust the window views. Normal View has the windows in their default configuration, and the Tile Horizontally view stacks the windows on top of each other. You can also drag and resize the windows to adjust the view. Then there's the Expand or Collapse the Tree view. And there are buttons to manage the column displays. Finally, there's the Transport Groupings pull-down, which you can see has all the groupings that we imported from Project Preconstruction. Now, going back to the exercise in the training guide, we want to find the optional base, item 0285706, and highlight it. You'll see the quantity information appear in the Quantity pane. If you click on the Pay Item Table tab, you'll see that it changes the view to sort by pay item number and has adjustable columns that you can scroll through. It's another way you can display the information to find the data you're looking for. Let's change it back to the pay item tree and take a look at the Quantity pane. The training guide wants us to right-click in the column headers. This brings up the Quantity Table dialog, where we can turn on and off various column displays. Notice that there are a few empty columns, and maybe we don't want to see those, So uncheck Remarks, Description, and Extended Description, and those columns are hidden. Close the Quantity Table dialog. Notice that if you click the button for Quantity Table, it brings back the same dialog and it remembers which columns are checked. If we click on the first quantity line in the Quantity pane, the Element pane will show each element that makes up the particular quantity. Notice that the name and the native ID are shown as a number. These are the same as the area ID and are the unique identifier MicroStation uses to define the element in the DGN file. Now let's expand the asphalt category and find the 334152 pay item. We'll highlight one of the quantities in the Quantity pane, then change the tab in the Element pane to Ad hoc Attributes. Notice that all the ad hocs that we assigned with DNC Manager are listed here, and you can adjust the column widths as needed to see the information. Exercise 5.2, Creating a Category. In this exercise, we'll create a new category in the database for manual pay items. Continuing from the previous exercise, let's look in the pay item tree and highlight the roadway design category. We want to insert a subcategory, and we can do that by right-clicking and selecting the subcategory option. Or, since we have the roadway design category highlighted, we can select Insert Category Subcategory. When the new Category Properties dialog appears, just enter Manual Pay Items and click OK. Notice that the subcategory has been added at the bottom of the tree. Exercise 5.3, Importing Pay Items. In this exercise, we'll set the project preferences to find the pay item list AEC item XML, and we'll import some pay items into the database. Once again, continuing from where we left off, this exercise wants us to set the project preferences. Since I did that earlier when we were going through the Quantity Manager menus, we'll just take a quick look to verify that the path is correct and the settings are good. Let's go to Project Preferences and double-check the path is going to our project and the SYMB folder. All the other settings look good, so we can click OK. Next, we'll set the transport groupings to O200. Then, in the Pay Item tree, we'll right-click on the Manual Pay Items category we just added and select Insert Pay Item. This allows us to insert pay items with the quantity included. In the New Pay Item Properties dialog, click on the Browse button. This brings up the list that's populated with the data from the AEC item XML. If for any reason this shows up blank, you'd need to double-check to make sure that you have the correct spec year in the project properties and make sure that the path to the AEC item XML is correct in your project preferences. We'll set the filter to sort by the description and enter the letter M to get all the descriptions starting with M. You can filter by pay item number or description, and the more numbers or letters you type in the filter, the more it narrows the results. Just be aware that pay items are in transport format and start with a 0 and can have spaces in the middle. In the table, select Mobilization, then click Import. Now the information is filled in on the New Pay Item Properties dialog. For this particular item, we want to check on the rounded value and set it to 1. Then we can click OK. For some reason, this collapses the pay item tree, but we can just expand it back out and check out the Manual Pay Item category to see that our mobilization pay item is now there. Let's right-click on the Manual Pay Items category again, and this time we'll select Import Pay Items AEC XML Infrastructure V33. This only inserts the pay item itself. We'll go back later to add the quantities. On the Select Pay Items dialog, the description filter is still sorted to the letter M, but that's fine because we want to select Maintenance of Traffic. Click the Import button and it's added to the category. Next, we'll change the filter to the letter B because we want to add the pay item for business sign. Select the business sign item, then click Import. Close the Select Pay Items and review the pay items we've just added. Exercise 5.4, Creating Quantities. In this exercise, we'll add quantities to the pay items we added to the Manual Pay Items category. Continuing from the last exercise, now we need to give some quantities to the pay items we added. So let's right-click on the Maintenance of Traffic pay item and select Insert Quantity. Now we have to fill out the new Quantities Properties boxes. We can leave the measurement basis as each, change the measurement value to 60, and the computed quantity to 1. Hit Tab and see that the rounded quantity and net quantity update. This particular pay item is a hybrid lump sum quantity, so it has 2 values. Following the training guide, we'll type in Manual Pay Item in the description line. Next, we'll check the Location tab. We have to set the chain here, so select SR61 Job 00. The stations update, and we can leave their values as they are. There are no ad hocs on this pay item, so we can just click the Create icon, and the quantity is added. Next, we'll add some quantities under the Business Sign pay item. Right-click and Insert Quantity. On the New Quantities Property General tab, we just need to enter a measurement value of 1. Select the Location tab and set the baseline chain to SR61. We're going to enter values for 3 signs. Since they're signs at 3 locations, each one will have the same minimum and maximum, station, and offset. There aren't any ad hocs for this pay item either, so we'll enter the locations and create the quantities. The first sign is at 706 plus 00. We can just enter the value 70600 and hit Tab, and it will format the value. Enter 100 as the offset, and repeat the values in the maximum station. Then click Create. Notice that the quantity information appeared in the quantity pane above. With the new Quantity Properties dialog still active, we can change the stationing for the next sign. Enter 78200 and Tab. Then -100 offset. Repeat the values in the maximum station boxes and click Create. The last sign is at 79100. And 100 offset. Fill in the maximum stations and click Create. Notice that all 3 signs now have entries in the quantity pane. Next, in the training guide, we're going to add a quantity for overbuild to the Superpave asphaltic concrete. We'll find the category, select the pay item, then right-click and insert quantity. On this one, we'll need to change the measurement basis to area. Then we'll set the measurement value to 5.26 and the computed quantity to 5.26. Hit Tab and the other fields populate. Everything else on this tab is OK, so let's set the location. Set the chain to SR61 and leave the stationing. This pay item has ad hocs and D&C, so we need to make sure that we have all the same names and types to match, so that the quantity will be found by LDM for the quantity tables. There are 6 lines of ad hocs, so we can go ahead and insert 6 lines. Then we'll fill them out to match the training guide. Lift, design notes. Make sure to use upper and lower case to match D&C, just to be safe. LOC description, no spaces. STA CL driveway. Pavement type. Sort by, no spaces. Then we'll make sure the types are all correct. Set the lift to numeric. Then we'll add the values for design notes. Overbuild in all caps. And pavement type, roadway, in all caps. Make sure you tab out of the ad hoc you've edited last, or it won't remember it when you click Create. Double check to make sure all the ad hocs match the training guide. A quick review of all the tabs, and if everything looks okay, click Create. We can scroll down to the bottom in the quantity pane and see the new quantity that we added. Highlight the item and select the Ad hoc Attributes tab to check and make sure all the ad hocs are correct. Exercise 5.5, Creating CSV Reports. In this exercise, we'll use Quantity Manager's Report tool to create CSV reports of the clearing and grubbing and removal of existing concrete quantities. Then we'll save those reports to the Project Calculations folder to use to fill out our quantity tables later. Another thing that we can do from the Quantity Manager interface is to create reports on our quantities. This can be very helpful when we have quantity tables that aren't automated, but we already have that information in our database. Instead of having to manually enter all those quantities again, we can generate a report that we can use to copy that data to our tables. First, let's make sure our transport groupings are set to the roadway 0200 category. To generate a report, the grouping must be set and can't be left to all categories or you'll get an error. Then we'll look at the pavement removal, clearing and grubbing category. Let's select the first clearing and grubbing pay item. Then we'll select the Tools menu item, then Reports, and Create. In the Create Report dialog, we'll make sure it's set to the Area Computation CSV report style. Then we need to set the report file name. Let's click the Browse button so we can make sure this gets to the correct folder. It's defaulted to Roadway, but we want to put it in the Calculations folder, so let's go up a level and select Calculations. Then we'll give it a file name. We can use the pay item number 0110_1_1, and it'll set the extension to .csv. Then click Open. You don't have to name it with the pay item for these reports, just whatever makes sense so that you can find the file when you're ready to use it to fill in your quantity tables. The Report Only Selected Quantities checkbox would allow you to highlight a group of quantities in the pay item pane and generate a report on only the items you had highlighted. Since we're reporting on the entire pay item for this exercise, we don't need to check this option. Now we can click Create, and Excel opens the CSV file. The columns are a little misadjusted, so I'll show you a quick trick to clean them up. Select the triangle in the upper left corner to select everything in the file. Then go to the Format tool and select Autofit Column Width. Now we can read all the data and see it better. I think we fixed this on all the newer maintenance releases, but if your report doesn't look like this, you may have an old style sheet. Because Quantity Manager looks on your local drive, not the FDOT folder for these style sheets, either the client or the workstation installation copies the style sheet or report format to your local drive. If you have only done server updates and not updated your client in a long time, you may not have the current style sheets. If you aren't getting the columns and information in your report that you see here, make sure to update your local client or workstation with the most up-to-date FDOT SS4 maintenance release, and that should fix the problem. Click Save, then close Excel. Close the Create Report dialog, then highlight the Selective Clearing and Grubbing item. Go to Tools, Reports, Create, and we'll change the file name to match the pay item. (0110_2_2). Click Open, then Create, and Excel opens the file. Adjust the column widths so that we can see all the data. Now, in this file, you'll notice that the column headings have gotten a little off from their columns. This is because a CSV is a comma-delimited file, and the pay item description has a comma in it, so Excel sees it as a new column. You can highlight the column headings that are in the wrong locations, right-click, and select Cut. Then click in the cell that the first heading should be in. Right-click and select Paste. Adjust the column widths again, and all the columns are with the correct headings. Click Save and close Excel. Finally, we'll highlight the removal of existing concrete pay item. Go to Tools, Reports, Create, and once again, browse and change the file name to 0110_4_10. Click Open, then Create. When Excel opens, select everything and auto-fit column width. Save and close Excel, and close Create Report. You'll notice that I created individual reports for each pay item. You technically could select multiple pay items and create a report on all of them at once, but since they need to be grouped together by pay item in the summary tables, and in case you need to make changes or update any pay item, it's best just to keep them to a single pay item per report. This is the end of Module 4. Next, continue to Module 5, Chapter 6, Plan Summary Boxes and LDM.